Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of UCF Business Town Hall. I'm excited to be joining you all here from Santa Rosa Beach to talk a little bit about UCF. And the goal with all of this was to put together a place for us to get together and start really leveraging our alumni base. We have gotten to the point that we're over 300,000 plus alums, and um, our average alumni age is right around 38 to 39 years old, which means we are now in a position to collectively get together as business owners and for us to get together as corporate folks to kind of learn from each other. So the intent with this series is going to be to bring together folks from all walks of life in the UCF world so that they can talk about the things that they have done, experienced, learned from, whether it be a startup to scaling to medium-sized businesses and in the corporate world, things like change, tech stacks, marketing, any sales lessons that they may have learned, mistakes that they have made. So hopefully we're helping each other out. In addition to that, our goal is also to bring together our alumni in a way that allows them to work together, find each other, understand, and kind of network your skill sets. And, I've personally had the benefit of working together with folks from all over the dungeon. And we're going to start here and we're going to move forward and expand this beyond to the larger alumni base. We have the benefit of having folks come together from UCF alumni, the official UCF alumni, and they also pledge their support for this channel. So once we have done a few of these and kind of get our feet under us, for lack of a better term, then we'll actually go live and expand this reach so that we can include more alumni as we kind of move along. So there's going to be, for each show, for each week, and this is the first one, there's going to be 3 different topics that we're going to discuss. We'll have a panel of 5 people that are UCF alum, that are either business owners or in the corporate world, have a specialization in the topics that we're going to talk about. There'll also be a speaker, a featured speaker every week on the topic that we're going to be discussing as well. And the idea there is for them to kind of, share their knowledge, their expertise, kind of talk about that topic. And then there'll be an opportunity after we go through those topics for everyone to kind of ask questions or talk. And I'll signal that on the screen as we kind of move along through the show so that we can engage. This is meant to be engaging. It's meant to be a place for you to ask questions of us and for us to provide feedback on whatever topic it is and kind of take those shared experiences and learnings and share it with you. Additionally, there's a chat feature that's involved with StreamYard and YouTube. So anything that you guys chat, we'll be able to see. There's a private chat feature. And the goal with that is for you guys to be able to interact with each other and also discuss what skill sets you have so that you can talk to each other regarding whatever specializations or find opportunities for partnership. I found I'm actually working with someone now that's a UCF alum, and the genesis of all this was that conversation and really beginning to understand how we can help each other and how our skill sets were complementary. So we actually have a partnership agreement between our 2 businesses and are actively providing services for clients. And then we were also able to partner on other things. So the bigger, other larger schools that have been around for a lot longer have these alumni networks that they're leveraging, and we want to kind of create a place for that to happen. So this week, unfortunately, the folks that were going to be on the panel, I got a little bit later start with this, and they won't be joining until a bit later in the show. So I'm going to be talking about our first topic, which is tech stacks. And this will be both in the startup. It'll also be in medium and large organizations. And I guess I'll start a little bit about me. I have kind of worked my way up. I'm a UCF alum. I've got my most recent degree was an MBA, which I'm very thankful for from UCF. And I worked my way up in the financial space and then the corporate space. Worked for Disney for a time in leadership there, and then went on to work at multi-billion-dollar organizations in an executive capacity. And then I decided, I had an epiphany, like a lot of people do. I'd like to do this on my own. So built a startup with a good friend of mine, um, from 0 to $500 million valuation in about the span of 3 years. So very rapidly scaling. And scale is something that is super important, super difficult to do. However, part of that is failing forward. And so I've done a lot of failing forward over a short period of time, and I'm taking those learnings, and now I'm building 9 organizations in 12 months. One is already live. I just filed the incorporation paperwork for the second one. It'll involve everything from marketing, which is what my background that you see right now is my marketing company, Seven Lights Marketing. But there's also a two software companies, some real estate companies, um, and a few other ecosystem companies that kind of tie into those that I'm building right now. So I'll be doing a YouTube channel on that. I've already started filming content for it, and I'd love it if you guys, as we kind of move along, that'll be posted so you guys can kind of follow along as we move along. So um, for lack of a, let's go ahead and get started and talk about tech stacks in startups. So when you're dealing with a startup, tech stacks are kind of difficult to follow. Um, you're going to most people, they're so overwhelmed by what they're trying to do and just set up a company before they get started, and before they actually sink their teeth into an organization. um, they're thinking about all these other things that they need to do, and they need to be making money. The thing about tech stacks in companies is nobody ever thinks of scale. They're thinking of what are the what are the things that people need, basic things, the accounting software, etc., that they need to get started and get going. One of the mistakes many people make is they go for the cheapest software stack that they can afford, basically because they're just starting out. So at the end of the day, what I kind of learned, and my takeaway was that it still takes some planning. And one of the big things, if you're planning on scaling, is that you want to be thinking about um, where where do you want to go, and can you integrate all of these systems as you're moving along? You want to be able to have your accounting software talk to your CRM, and for your CRM to talk about your delivery software. And the idea behind that is you want to automate as much as possible. And then along with that automation, you also want to make sure that they talk to each other so that you're not having to integrate as you scale. It's easy to do when you're a small organization, 5, 10 people. But when you start to scale and when your business really takes off, it's a lot more difficult for those things to talk to each other. So, for me, what I went through with this last marketing organization, one of the things I was looking at is what tech stack can I get that's going to be able to tie my accounting system with my CRM, with my software system for producing and my delivery system. And so I went through a bunch of different things. I ended up going with HubSpot. It's marketing focused. You can do a lot of things in it. But at the end of the day, the bottom line with it was, and the thought was, I can build workflows that talk to each other, because the more people have to think about things at scale, the more mistakes are going to be made. And so for you, if you're a startup or if you're a middle-sized organization, you've gone to that next level and you're ready to jump up into the next level, you want to make sure that you have that tech stack in place so that um, you're not having to try to integrate or do things manually, because ultimately you'll end up chasing your tail, and it'll spend a lot of time operationally. It's not going to be efficient. It's not something you want to do. So start with your accounting system. Make sure your CRM talks. There's a lot of options out there through Zapier. There'll be a lot of companies that will tell you Zapier this, Zapier that, Zapier this. That's great until you're doing it at scale and you're paying for it. And again, when you're small, it doesn't matter as much because you're not going to be doing as many transactions. But long term, those are things that it's going to cost you money. You're going to create a dependency on Zapier, and what you want to be as independent as possible and have that ecosystem talk to each other so that you can report. Because ultimately, you want visibility into how many sales are you making, how much effort, level of effort, and cost you have associated um, you know with producing said product. And then from a sales perspective, can you go back through the sales perspective and track how much level of effort you're having to put into the sales process to get that to work? So that covers a very, very broad overview. So I'm going to encourage you guys to kind of interact with me as we move along. I'm going to ask you if you have any questions. Um, and then I'm going to expand on that a little more for from a larger perspective. So there's a chat box there. If you guys have any questions or any comments or anything that you want to interact with, please enter them into the chat. I'll be able to see that, bring those up for you, and hopefully we'll have a conversation around that. In the meantime, while you guys are thinking about that, one of the biggest things for me, and it looks like one of our panelists just jumped in, Josh Lazar. So he's also a fellow Dungeon member, and I'll allow him to kind of introduce himself and what he does. So give me just one moment. And there is Josh, and he said he just needs 1 second. So we'll let him get his tech stack ready to go. Um, and just give me a little wave when you're ready, and give yourself a little bit of an introduction, what you do, and any lessons that you've learned with regard to tech stacks, starting as a startup and then working your way throughout the evolution of your business.
Okay, is that for me? Sorry, I just got my headset on and kids are going to sleep. Oh, hello. Okay, I'm the show. We're live.
Hi, I can hear you.
You can hear me. Okay, what's going on? Sorry, I
Doing
just
really
got.
well. Number one, the first show. Thank you for giving us, the opportunity of your time and your expertise to kind of share what your experiences have been throughout your time as a business owner, and what your experience was with tech. And I'd love it if you just kind of introduce yourself and what you do.
Sure. So, hey, I'm Josh Lazar, and I'm the CEO of Tech Think Tank. What we're trying to do is guide the future of business communications. And normally I would be in the full suit and tie, and I'm a bow tie guy. It's part of the brand. But I've spent the last 8 hours at a conference plus doing family work and all of that. So I'm just in the shots right now. I'm straight up not going to be very fancy right now, maybe in future programs. But so my background, I've been a CIO, a former IT director. I'm deep in the legal industry, so I've worked in that space. Plus, I've also been working at UCF as an adjunct instructor, TA, since I've been 17 years old. I still work there now. Not summers. Usually summers hard to get classes. But in the technology field and kind of what I'm doing for my own business, it's a bit of a string through communications. So sometimes that manifests itself into working on IT assessments and technology assessments, cyber security assessments for small businesses between 10 and maybe about 500 to 1,000 employees. I've worked on that. That's what I primarily do in the legal aid community. I have some insights and background into professional speaking. I get paid to present in certain areas. I also work on keynotes. I work on helping people with their presentation skills, business coaching, And I have a small software development shop, and what we're really trying to do, and all of the things that I do are usually aligned to this main pain point. So as a CIO, I had this graveyard of deleted items and bad emails and just people who didn't know who I was, but they were trying to pitch me all the time with all these products. And they sucked. All of them sucked. Very few, maybe 5 or 10% of the people that attempted to cold call or email me actually did something halfway decent. And so that
Okay,
was
I'm gonna pause you there because I want you to kind of come back to that later
sure.
and kind of share what they did well. That
Okay.
way, that could be kind of like a learning for other folks because when you get to be the executive level, and I was in the same situation. When you get to an executive level, people you're bombarded, whether it be on LinkedIn or phones or whatever. And it's great, I think, for anybody who's a salesperson in sales, prospective salesperson, to hear the other end of that conversation.
Yeah, I'd be glad to chat through that. It's I do some workshops based off of that, and I'm dabbling in the area of helping keynote sales kickoffs, SKOs, because I'm one of the rare people who've been on that end and targeted by people for a decade. But I've also built up a book of business as a business owner, and so I understand why those things are happening. But Ophelia, hi, hold on one second. Hi, Ophelia. I'm
Well,
doing
folks,
something
this is
live.
why it's live TV, right? So
Yes.
hi, Ophelia. I don't know if she can hear us, but she's
Okay.
absolutely adorable.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's what most business
Um,
owners are dealing with, right?
this is
We've
true.
all got
Yes,
families, so that's why we're
I
doing
do.
this.
So I might have to take care of this. I'll be back one second.
Okay, I'm gonna unpin you here and
Okay.
pin
Thanks.
myself back to the screen. All right, folks. So we're gonna give Josh a moment to figure out his little one. She was absolutely adorable. But this is kind of why we're doing this, and why we're doing this now is so we can kind of talk through these challenges because we are in that time frame where folks have families and they're building their businesses, and Josh, from a tech perspective, I think has a really unique perspective on works and what doesn't, and I'll get him to share that with us. But also, one of the things that he had mentioned was sales. And so for me as an executive or someone who's a decision maker, and as we all know, we're all salespeople, right? Everybody in an organization is a salesperson. So if you're a business owner, or if you're a leader, everybody should be an advocate for your organization and what they're selling. And so, because of that, we want to make sure that we are providing those talking points for people as well. So, if you think about it, there's so many stories where folks have come in and said, "Hey, I'd love to tell you about X, Y, Z." And I guess let me give you some insight from my perspective and how those sales pitches, what worked and what didn't. Now, every sales pitch, every salesperson and approach should be a little bit different and tailored based on the person that's answering the phone. But for me, a couple of things that really, really grinded my gears, for lack of a better term, um, was one, salespeople who did not know who I was or what I did. There's a lot of LinkedIn messaging that goes out there. There's a lot of cold calls where people didn't even take a moment to look at the website. That's an automatic close the door. If you get past my gatekeeper and I give you a conversation and we talk about things, I'm going to ask a lot of questions. So I don't expect you to have all of them, but I expect you to get those for me and at least tell me what I need to know and what value you're bringing. So not what the features are, but what's in it for me. As a business person, my take on things is always going to be I have three rules for business. One is people do business with people they like. So hopefully you've got a good enough personality if you're in sales that you're going to get past that. Both parties have to get something out of it, and there has to be equity in the relationship. If I'm a decision maker, I'm super busy. I'm in meetings. I'm going back and forth. I'm responsible for, in my case, $3 billion in assets for the organization. So my time, I have staff of 100 people, My time is of the essence, and that's more than one project. So if I'm selling one particular service, I want to make sure that that person who's talking to me can articulate what the actual value is and what the give back is to me. Because I will do business with you if you know you're a person, quote unquote, that I like. But if you can't articulate the value to me, I'm not going to give you a second conversation. The second thing that I would say is don't use industry jargon or terms, right? You don't want to talk to people and say things like vertical. I heard that so many times, right? You know, vertical this vertical, and Josh looks like he's joined us again. So I'm going to pop him back up, and then I'm going to finish my rant, Josh. Um,
Okay.
but things like, you know, like buzzwords or industry jargon, don't use that when you're talking to me, right? I want to understand what your product actually does. I don't want to get the features, assume I don't know what it is. Give me what the value add is. If I give you this amount of money, I'm looking for ROI. Can you articulate that, right? So, you know, if you're a salesperson, make sure you're articulating the value add. And then, you know, when you're talking to me, double tap. And I always tell my salespeople double tap. And what that basically means is if you're going to get a phone call in or you get to a gatekeeper, make sure you ask for a time that I am available. Right now, you're calling on your time, not my time. So if I'm going to give you time, be able to have a quick 2-minute elevator pitch where you're going to be able to say, hey, this is what I'm going to do for you, right? And ask that gatekeeper for that time and when that person will be available. Salespeople, a lot of salespeople that I've seen, they don't ask for the sale, they don't ask for the time. It's okay to ask for the time. If you believe in your product, you're providing value for me. I want you to tell me that, right? And I want you to ask my gatekeeper for that time. Now, that gatekeeper, you've got a split second to give them the information because that gatekeeper is going to tell me. And I am the executive. I'm going to say, okay, well, this person makes sense or not. If it sounds somewhat interesting, I'm going to go look you up, right? Because I'm an executive at that point or a business owner at that point. I'm going to be spending my money with you. I'm going to look you up and look at your research. If your website sucks, if your presentation sucks, if it's all about, you know, if you can't articulate value through your digital channels, I'm not going to call you back because to you, it's a waste of time. And number three, when you do have that time and I ask you to get information for me, write it down, whether it be like, I don't do anything by hand. I don't care if you're writing it by hand or doing it digitally, but write it down and bring it back and make sure that you're coming back to me with that conversation. You're guiding that conversation. On that second conversation, you're going back and you're saying, okay, hey, this is what I'm going to cover. This is what I'm going to find out for you. Send me the email to confirm that you understand what it was that I was looking for, and then go get it and then come back to it at the next meeting and start with that, right? Because then you're telling me, hey, I'm important to you and I was important enough for you to go figure out what it was that I was in. And don't just spit back the same talking points. Tell me what the answer is in a way that makes sense because you're going to assume I don't know everything about your product. So I'm looking for value. So that's my executive sales view and lessons learned sitting on the other side of the chair. And with that being said, Josh, I'm throwing it back to you.
Sure. So there are a lot of things from the decision maker side of the chair that I have not only learned, but been annoyed with. And a lot of things you're talking about are the things that end up just being annoying to me. But the thing is that a lot of people don't even understand what communication channel you want to start with. Like, I don't like phone calls. I've never liked phone calls. I If you can do all of the Zoom info and Apollo.io work you want to do, or LinkedIn Sales Navigator or whatever, if you're calling me, it's already a hard no. And I've done a lot of research in this for some of the software I'm developing to really kind of fix this trust process because my research has found that the business communications are broken. Trust has been broken. The rise of data brokers, the rise of automation has made people less human. And using Samantha McKenna's Sam Sales, you might see her on LinkedIn and other channels, show me you know me, now trademarked, is a great way of stating that, because when you try to pitch me and use my wrong name, or if you think this email is going to really find me well, you already lost. You already lost me, because it's just not the way people talk. It's just robotic. And so I've done a lot, as I said, I've done a lot of research on it. And from the decision maker perspective, it's so much trash that it's like 5 or 10% of the sales professionals know what they're doing. BDR, if you're that big, SDR, maybe if you're a little bit smaller. On the sales side, though, I could talk all day long as a decision maker. I did that for a very long time as a former CIO. But as a business owner, and I made that transition about 3 months ago, deciding to give up a W-2 and try to kind of bring these things to life. I get why people cold call, cold email, warm email, do branding, and try to get this outreach going. Why they sequence emails, why they try to at least get in your inbox. And some people use really poor tactics for this. At some point, I need to develop business. I mean, that's the goal. And if I don't develop business, and if I don't have a funnel or a flow of funds, then I need to go find another job. So I get why it's there. It's just not done that well. And the unfortunate part is that maybe 5 or 10% of sales professionals that are really, really good also dislike the people that use, and I hate the terms, but these are some of the popular terms, use spray and pray campaigns, where they just buy a list, or they go to a convention or an event and they grab a bunch of names. They don't know who they are. They throw it into their BDR, SDR teams, and they just start an Apogee sequence or some type of email sequence where you get the 27 different contacts within a month or so. Uh, and with no real knowing that person, and just trying to hit them over and over and over and over again in multi channels just to get some type of response. So,
So, so
yeah,
Josh, why don't you give us a little bit about what does work for you and what did work for you?
sure. So the first thing that we're working on from a software side, and something's hard to get, is first understand where you want to meet. Some people don't want to talk on LinkedIn. Some people don't, or the reverse. Some people want to talk on LinkedIn. Some people want to talk on their cell phone. Some people want a text message. Some people want to be on Slack, on Discord, on Messenger, on email. When I've done research, so I've interviewed 200 decision makers, and it's over at this point. Decision makers and vendors asking some questions about this. It's very varied. It's across the board. So the first thing that helped with me is like telling people, I don't call me. And it isn't like I don't want any calls. It's just I don't like that type of way to get to me as a decision maker. I want more control over it, and most decision makers do. I'm not saying all. There are some people who love being on the phone, but just random calls, no. But what does work for me is almost all in-person conversations. I'm pretty much I'm extroverted. I know that about myself. I love in-person conversations. I have had a business lunch every single day this week. Mostly biz development, sometimes networking, sometimes speaking at a conference on a panel. Um, Going to an event in Tiger Bay in Orlando tomorrow. Those type of things, love. Having a conversation via email, no. And you have to be really good if you're going to get through on a cold email with me. Things that I've seen that people don't like. Hey, it's a great note. Hey, I'm a UCF alumni in the first line, and then information at the end. Honestly, it's a very popular kind of pull to get to the heartstrings. Still doesn't work for me. Most email, I'm trying to think of the things that I've purchased.
Josh,
Yeah,
what works? Like it's
I
funny
was
because
saying,
it's just like when we're talking about business in general, right? When we're looking at the things that we do every day, we are very, very good about looking at the things that don't work, right? And
yeah,
trying to pivot off of those. What we don't do, whether we're talking about from a leadership perspective or whether we're talking about from a managing resources, process, any of those other kinds of things. We don't talk a lot about or reinforce what works. So for you, if I were to sell you or you have sold others, what are the tactics that have worked for you?
Well, you could take my workshop and we can talk about that live and in person. But I'll tell you the key things that have
Well,
worked
put
for
that in
me.
the chat on there for so everybody can see what that is.
Yeah, we can, well, that's a one-on-one private conversation. You could just reach out to me, DM me on LinkedIn, connect, and we'll have a conversation. But what I can tell you, which does work for me as a decision maker, was short to the point emails that has something to do with a pain point that you might have seen somewhere in my socials. Um, In-person conversations that just lead to building good relationships, and every single thing that you can think of that is relatively in person, good for me. I'm no phone calls, no text messages, usually no asynchronous communications. But for me, it's really in person communications and like it has to be a really good or innovative email or physical mail. Like there was a great physical mail campaign that someone did for a product I wasn't going to buy. I don't know if the skill storm people are listening or in this, but like it was that type of software. And yeah, I was like, I'm not going to buy you, but I'm going to save this mailer because for 50 whatever cents I might steal that from you. So that was good. Like I read it because how many people get physical mail at their offices anymore? But if you're remote, there's some of that. But those are the things that mainly work. Now, for me, what works is being authentic and real, and having conversations that are authentic and real. So I went from 0 to 7 clients in the first 3 months, right, of building my business. Only 2 of those have been previous, like, side quest is the term that I got from someone from Australia on LinkedIn. I love it better than side hustle myself. So in these side quests, I had a couple of people that had this interesting, idea, and I'm like, "Okay, we'll help you out. This is just kind of my side quest." And I have a couple of those that I re-engaged when I was like, "Okay, I'm full bore," and I did a really tight email to someone that's a warm lead, worked with them before, and I like the lavender application. I don't use it yet, but that organization has some really great insights on LinkedIn and other socials on how to do great sales via email, like tight 38, 50 word emails, no more than 3 word subject lines, easy to read on mobile, pain point, how we solve that pain, call to action right then and there. That has been really a great asset that I've leveraged the skills and knowledge from them. Like I have a OneNote of sales notes and I have things like email re-engage options using word swaps, how to email executives, and this whole list of things that I'm using. And almost everything that works for me is I've driven business through my side quests and re-engaging. So that was at least 10 grand. Um, Private networks where people have had asks and like I could try to help. That's been good. That was mostly friends. I've also have a very unique insight into a specific industry. I'm well known in legal and I'm very well known in legal aid. And because I know a specific niche industry well, I used all the lessons I learned from Lavender and a couple of other places to get right to attacking a pain point and got 2 contracts out of that with completely cold emails. Like they might have seen me on LinkedIn or a listserv, but straight up cold emails with a very specific pain point. And that pain point was, I know you have to spend this money that you already got by this specific date. You're running close to the deadline. Let me help you get there faster. And that was a couple of other contracts. So a lot of the stuff I've done was had been cold emailing, but not in the way I was emailed. That's really the leveraging really good personal communications. I have not used one AI system to automate emails. I write everything myself, and yes, it takes time, but my close rate is pretty damn good. Like
So
really good.
So let me ask you this. You mentioned that something that's really worked for you is networking, right? So how are you, from a networking perspective, how are you finding those networks and getting access to those networking events, where you can actually engage with folks and talk to them and kind of figure out, what solutions can you provide for them?
So let's start with the history and go to current. So, because I've worked in the private practice legal industry for about 9 years, I worked for a legal aid for multiple years and then served them as clients. I have access to some of these resources because I was on the other side, if you will. Hey, how you doing? Um, so because I had access to those networks, I've already kind of built in the trust. Like I am big, 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 big on trust, and um, people trust me. That starts with everything, and they trust me because I am myself. Like what you see here is what you'll see when I'm on stage. Like earlier today, maybe a little fancier, as I said, no UCF gear, but it's the same me, and I do everything as authentically as I can. It's no schmaltz, it's no fluff, it's just real. So because I've been doing that for decades, those have opened doors for all sorts of things already. And people like that. They can there was a great post on LinkedIn, and I'll get to that. There's a great post on LinkedIn talking about sales, and they can smell insincerity on you. Yeah, and I added, yeah, and if you do a vidyard in a video and it's not real and you can hear it, you can see it. And video prospecting is awesome. Um, sure, some of my competitors might be in here. Every time I do an RFP, I'll take that RFP and I'll use a vidyard and I'll do a video like this and talk about the RFP like I'm a real person because I am, even if it's people I know. So they get my insights and perspectives, and it's not just a flat piece of paper or a PDF digitally.
So
So yeah.
let me pause you there for a second. So one of the things that I've done successfully in the past with my sales teams, right, has you know we've created specific videos for those individuals, right? So like if I'm trying to pitch somebody or introduce myself, there is free software that you can use out there to create really short clips, and there's all kinds of examples on YouTube on things that you can do, but just be creative with it and make it custom, right? We want
Yeah.
their name, we want their organization in there. It doesn't, we want something specific in there that's going to grab them. Video is always, and especially personalized video, it takes 30 seconds to shoot it. It's shorter than it takes you to do an email, especially if you've practiced it for a while, right?
Hmm.
And it's a great way. It's a great way to engage with people and actually get them personalized things and get them to come back. So, with all that being said, Alan did sneak in here into the room, and there's
Hey.
Alan. He's also got his UCF gear on. For me, my UCF gear was my kind of my thing is pocket square sport coats, sometimes shirts, sometimes button ups. So I'll always have a UCF themed something, and then a lapel pin. So I don't know if you can see it, but it's Orlando's hometown team.
There you go.
I haven't got the Tampa's
Tampa
hometown
too.
team yet, but that's one I'm working on. I think maybe I'll do a custom one for that. And then maybe we'll get to Gainesville's hometown team eventually here too. So I think Miami might be up first. So Alan, just to kind of catch you up real quick, because you kind of missed what we were talking about. There's been a host of conversations. One is tech stacks. I kind of started the conversation there. We got into sales a little bit, what you hate and what you like. So what works on you essentially, and what doesn't work for you for folks that are trying to get sales. And then, how do you get access to networks, right? So that's a big question for people. Is like, okay, everybody says go social network. Well, how do you do that? If you're a new business owner, nobody tells you that, right? You'll have, your own network. Like Josh, you had your own network that you brought with you based on your experience, right? But a lot of people don't have that, or that network isn't as robust, or they're looking for something that's national. So how do you do those things? So Alan, I'd love to give like a quick 2 to 3 minute on those topics. What challenges? And it's funny because you and I actually were recently talking about tech stacks, right?
Yeah.
And what did you learn from your tech stack from where you started to where you are today? What would you do differently? And let's start there, and then talk about a little bit about sales, about what works on you and what works for you.
Yeah, I mean, for tech stacks, it's definitely evolved since I first got into the business to where it is now. I think one of the bigger mistakes was just not relying on technology enough in the beginning. Like, for a marketing company, I probably got into the CRM marketing agency a little later than I should have. I started out with one, forgot which one I was using in the very beginning, but changing to Sharp Spring, the one I have now, even it's always kind of evolving, right? The tech stack, but like one thing mistake I made in the beginning, I think, was not having one that was kind of like an all-in-one tool. So trying to get it was like you said the other day, you can't be perfect, but you can at least have operations, marketing, and sales should be all in one for your CRM/marketing automation, all that stuff could be under one roof. I have a bunch of other tools that I'm using, but I'm trying to really streamline the process. And now we have kind of like AI that can help with a lot of this tech stuff too. But I think that was probably a bigger mistake, was logging into 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different places and just kind of losing efficiency because of that. So, now relying on automation helps a lot more. So that's probably my answer there. And sorry, what was the second question?
Just on sales, like what has worked for you and what has worked on you. So basically, when other people are selling you stuff, what's worked? And then when you're selling other folks, what's worked? And then after that, what are like your top 2 or 3 things that didn't work?
Yeah, I think what's worked on me, I've always appreciated it. And it sounds kind of cliche, but like when someone really addresses my pain points, if I go into a sales call and like, even if they're addressing them without even having to ask me, what my pain points are. If something, I know when something resonates with me. So for me, I think if they're being authentic and they're really trying to make sure that they are helping me out and addressing my pain points, that usually resonates with me. Taking the time to answer all of my questions. I tend to ask a lot of questions, as you know, Roger. So, when they take the time to do that and, really, I think someone's trying to frame it around what their tool does best. I think that's a mistake. But how can it help me? If they're trying to sell me, how can it really help me and address my pain points? If they talk about that and really, they don't really need to sell me at that point. If it's something I could really feel that can help me, and they're not just talking about like why they're the best or why they're the most reputable. They're really talking about how it benefits me as a business owner, or how it's going to improve my company. That usually works, on me at least. And having some sort of connection too, I think helps. I mean, even if it's a first or second call, maybe not going right into business right away. Could just where you're from type of a couple questions like that, just so it's a little more human level to it, a little more personable. And that's kind of when I go into sales, that's how I approach it too. I like to connect on a human level first. Maybe there's some people based on their personality that want to get right into it and are not really talkative, but the ones that are, I don't know if you've ever done like a disc assessment, but I'm a
Yep.
high I and a high C. I like to talk, I like to connect with people. So I think that works for my sales. But then, being authentic, I think, is the number one thing. If I don't think I can help someone, I'm not going to try to sell them just to get, a paycheck or to get a check from someone. So I think that authenticity is my number one thing, and being real with someone, and just kind of having connection. I want to, I know not every client, I may not like every client, but I do like most of my clients. We can be friendly and get along. I mean, to me, that matters, is that human connection part. So yeah.
All right, so let me pause you there, because I want to kind of bring some things back, right? So some of the themes that I heard from Josh, actually, you guys, it was so funny because you weren't in the conversation. You weren't in the green room per se, right? When we first started this, and Josh was kind of explaining to everybody what worked for him, what didn't work for him. And he touched on a lot of the same topics that you did. Number one, he liked the personal touch. He liked people. He mentioned pain points specifically. So that's really, really, I feel like, is important. And then obviously, being real and authentic. I think, it's hard for sales folks in general because sales is an art, right? There are certain things that are not an art. There's science to it, right? So for example, like understanding how many times that you have to reach out to someone before you get them, understanding how many times that you have to, talk to people, right? Getting those metrics behind that whole sales cycle to understand, okay, if I want to make this goal with these products that are going to pull this amount of revenue in so that I can move the organization forward, you want to be able to build those goals forward and then move them back to your salespeople, whether it's a lead generator or an actual salesperson or someone who's a closer for you, right? But I think what salespeople that are successful do well, especially for startups, these are folks, either startups or mid-sized businesses, that don't have that national recognition, that don't have that branding, yet, right? They're working on it. They haven't got it there. So there's a certain amount of equity that you get just by your brand because you built that brand equity up. Well, that balancing how to talk to someone, right? And I think the biggest thing that you guys talked about was pain points. It's questions. It's not hard sales. It's developing a personal relationship and then asking open-ended questions about those pain points. For us, like in the marketing business that I have, right? One of the things that we run into all the time is actually two things. One, people assume that because of the experience and the products that they have with the marketing business that they're working with, they don't understand how many products are out there that can help them, right? So they're only exposed to the ones that they know or the ones that they're currently using. So as soon as you talk and you say something like marketing, nobody understands where the value add is for them. So they're going to shut down the conversation. I've already got a marketing department. I'm happy with them, yada, 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 right? So, establishing that connection with them first, having conversations. When you're doing in person, I know I used to go when I had an indirect lending department, which is, when you go to dealerships and you finance there, we were one of those companies that did the financing, but you have to compete for those loan applications, right? And one of the first things I always did was when I walked into someone's office, I scanned the room and I looked at what was in their office, right? And what's in their office? Well, okay, they've got a golf ball, they've got a, UCF memorabilia, picture of the bounce house or something. They've got pictures of their kids everywhere. And you pick up on that and you can build that personal connection with that. You can't do that on a cold call initially, and you can't do that digitally. So you have to find a way, to talk about what problem you're trying to resolve and kind of create a personal connection and then ask about those pain points. And once you get those pain points, one, you'll start to get a picture of what value you bring, because, people associate value with just the product that they sell. That's not necessarily the value that you're bringing to the organization, because it's that value that you're bringing is contributing in other ways. And people are not very good at articulating that. And then for me, you know, we do things a la carte. We have an a la carte, we have a full marketing agency model, or we have a bespoke model. And what that basically means is the a la carte model, you're going to be you know, picking and choosing, but most people only sell one thing, so they're only going to be exposed to one thing, so they assume that that marketing is that one thing. So asking those questions, what are your challenges, but also what's going well, right? Because you can build connection off, oh, that's great to hear. You know, I love that you guys are doing that. Have you considered this? And you really should know what your complementary products are to that, right? If you can do that and build bridges as opposed to making it a you know, a source of conflict, then you're going to move forward, and your hit rate, your close ratio, you know, the number of swings that you get is going to be much, much higher. And that's especially hard if you're a startup or a growing business. So thank you both for sharing that, because I think, you know, if anybody who's watching this, you heard it straight from two different people that have been on the side that are consuming services and those that are out there getting services. Now, the other thing I wanted to kind of highlight and kind of zoom in on with you, Alan, that you said, that tech stack. So can you describe the pain points that were created for you and why you recently went back out? I know you said they're disjointed and they didn't talk to each other, yada, yada, yada. But what specific issues did that cause in your business?
Actually, I think it's just mainly is just the lack of efficiency, and you know, just spending way too much time manually doing a lot of communication. You know, the actual process of getting client work done, it was just, you know, pretty inefficient. Instead of having to, you know, say the same thing over and over and assign the same thing over and over, you know, these type of things can get automated with, you know, task automation, with a lot of these platforms. So yeah, I mean, the pain point for me was time and money, right? I'm losing time, so I'm losing money, and I'm performing tasks that you know, I shouldn't be, and I don't want to be doing. And even my employees, you know, and some level shouldn't be doing some of these things that could be, you know, automated. We don't need to be manually doing so much of this stuff. So I think it was just kind of quite simply an issue of time, which time was money.
Yeah, and I think one of those things that you and I have talked about like at length is opportunity cost. People don't think about that, right? We think about, hey, we're saving money because we're not paying salary for doing these things, right? But then the opportunity cost is you're actually spending it twice, right? Because the value that you bring to the organization as a leader in the organization, whatever it is, right? You're not able to do the things and the value that you bring to the organization as a leader for all of the groups, right? Because you're doing these manual tasks. So that's one cost. And then the second cost is your actual salary. Because if you're doing that work and you're not producing value from the organization, then that salary expense that you have expended, whatever you're paying yourself, plus what you could have, how you could have moved that business and that organization forward, that's where technology steps in, because you're actually double charging yourself. So, you know, if you add those things together and then really think about, can I afford to go get, you know, additional employees to open those doors, and how much value comes back to the organization by doing that? That's the true calculus on that decision-making process. Now, we all want to run lean. We all have to run lean, right? Especially when you're in the startup phase of an organization or the stealth mode, you're going to run lean. You're going to wear a lot of hats. And as you grow, right, you're going to be able to specialize and you'll get better at all of these individual things. But you as the individual don't need to be the expert at everything. And if you are the expert at everything, you're not doing it right, right? And at the end of the day, it's that opportunity cost within the organization, because you're not unleashing your potential and you're double dipping into that cost equation. So finding a way, either by operationally through technology and your tech stack and automating a lot of these things, so you don't have to watch, manage, correct, do those things. If you can leverage technology as much as possible on the front end to do that, you end up winning in the on the long run, and you can take that salary and apply it towards growing your organization. Secondly, the from a technology standpoint, you have people who do their things really well. The technology should not be a consideration for how well they do their job. You have, when you're large enough, you have an IT department, you have, folks that do the things, right? That you have your CISOs, you have your CTOs, all that stuff. We don't have that, right? However, you have technology that can do those things for you. So being very, very choosy up front and thinking at it at scale, and I'm going to be talking about that a lot in these podcast episodes, is scale and thinking about it at scale from the front end. By looking at that and making sure that your tech stack and your ecosystem talk, you're going to eliminate a lot of those challenges later on. And all they need to be focused on is providing value in whatever they do and not overcoming the challenges the technology provides. So investing a little bit on the front end in the technology, investing on the time to make things talk, it pays dividends in the long run. And I learned that at my last startup that I had, and we were very successful. But by the time we got to over 100 employees and 500 million in value and 600 clients, and each one of those clients could have one of 20 products that require 20 steps to deliver on a recurring basis or a one-time basis. All of a sudden, you look around and you're spending a lot of time trying to chase what's going on and making sure things are happening and people are not considering each other. You have the opportunity to save time, validate your process, control your process, and get your people thinking and producing what they do and how they bring value to your organization, and not overcoming the technology that you built on the front end. So that was a huge learning lesson for me. And that's why this time around, we went through that tech stack and thought about a tech ecosystem. Okay, so we've got about 2 minutes left on this one. It went by really, really fast. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Alan, for jumping on. And it was so interesting for me that you guys both kind of identified the same points. But quick takeaways for everybody, and then talk about what services that you provide.
I can start off. I jumped in a little late. This is a weird time today for me. I've been at a conference for 8 or 9 hours, and I've been speaking on stage, and I didn't expect to have the time frame to come up. So I'm glad that I'm learning this platform. Speaking of tech stacks as well, it's good to hear validation from other people that all the things that I've already researched are confirmed, and will be confirmed over and over again. It's wonderful. It's also what I've found out is that someone in my ecosystem, there's someone else really kind of attacking the same project in my ecosystem, which is also validation, because someone else thinks it's enough of a problem to make money off of it. So I do too. But within this conversation, it was really great to hear different perspectives. I'll tell you, if you don't get your tech stack right to start, call me. That's what I do. Make sure that you have great IT departments when you get to that size and get to that space. Do technology assessments, fractional CIO and IT work when I'm not trying to completely change the game of how business communications are happening in your organization. So that was really the value I found of it, and hopefully I provide some insights that were interesting as well. And I'm glad to continue the conversation too. And I have so much information on tech stacks. We didn't even talk about how basically I've driven business for free on LinkedIn and gotten to a pipeline just by LinkedIn conversations and branding. And we can talk about all that another time.
Well, yeah, I think that's one of those things, Josh. We're going to have lots of conversations. There's marketing, there's branding, there's sales, there's culture, there's organization, all of that stuff. And there's so many niches within that. So we'll definitely have more conversations around that. And I appreciate you kind of joining. Do you want to shout out your LinkedIn?
Sure. It's Josh. I'm pretty much Josh Lazar everywhere, or Tech Think Tank is my business. All regular words, Tech Think Tank. We do all kinds of things from software development to IT assessments, technology, fractional CIO work. It's me and a small team of developers, and I'm really just here to help. So, let me know how we can help you, and we'd be glad to do that.
All right, and make sure you give your screen name.
Oh, I'm Mr. Knight and the message boards.
All right, awesome. Alan, I know we didn't get as much time with you this time, but I really appreciate you joining. So, do you want to share, the things that you do, and your LinkedIn and your screen name, obviously.
Yeah, next time definitely would like to be here longer and participate in the full conversation. I think these are great, and obviously getting fellow UCF people together is always a great thing. And talking about everything from, like you said, culture to tech stack to sales to marketing, so helpful for business owners and in order to grow and continue to grow. So it's great. My business is Smarty Pants Marketing. We are a digital marketing agency, full service digital marketing agency based in Fort Lauderdale. We primarily service small to medium sized businesses and have somewhat of a niche in the legal space. Historically worked with a lot of lawyers, and we offer full service marketing from lead generation to website builds and reputation management and all the above. My LinkedIn is similar to Josh, just Alan Levin on LinkedIn. Smarty Pants Marketing is pants is with a Z, not an S. And
That's
then
an important distinction, because the
It
first
is.
time I looked it up, I didn't realize that.
Right. So, yeah, it is with a Z. And then in the on the forum, UC Fan 07. So, yeah, UC Fan 07. I've had that account since 2007. So long time.
Long time, which is
Yeah.
awesome. I'm sure Brandon appreciates your money. And I appreciate the platform that Brandon has provided for us to, get together and kind of find each other, and obviously now expanding into professional relationships as well. So thank you for joining us. I'm sure we'll have you on some more when we start talking about marketing. And Alan actually partners with me on some things as well, so he does know his stuff. I will vouch for him as well. And as for me, I didn't really go over what I do. So I do consulting, small, medium, and large businesses. I also have a marketing agency, Seven Lights Agency, at sevenlights-agency.com. We're full service as well on marketing. We service small, medium-sized organizations, but we also service larger scale organizations as well. So we have clients that are Fortune 500s. We have clients that are small businesses. So we go full A to Z, and we do everything. We do have a specialization that a lot of other people can't or don't have, which is shooting commercials. So Nightlight, sorry about that, but we'll have you on to talk about video production at some point. But we also produce small and large scale video production anywhere in the country. We can shoot at any location, any size of shoot, depending on what your budget is. So we do that, photography, and everything from SEO to SEM to website builds to emails to whatever type of marketing you need, branding, etc. For me, my LinkedIn is LinkedIn / Roger Phipps MBA. So there's another Roger Phipps out there. I am Roger Phipps MBA. And, I have some more businesses that are coming down the pipeline that I'll be excited to tell you guys about as well. So if you guys have any questions for me, you need any consulting services, anything related to marketing, anything related to fintech, anything related to banking, credit union space, technology, I'm your guy. Anything related to operations, I was, head of operations at the previous spot I was in. Like I said, grew a company from very, very small to very, very large, and learned a lot. So, and I'm COO for several other organizations now as well. So if there's anything you guys need, please let me know. Appreciate everybody's time. Next time we'll have a featured speaker that will be speaking for 10 minutes. Please make sure if you guys have any topics that you want to cover specifically or anything of interest or of note, please submit that before Tuesday at noon so that I can include those. I'm constantly looking for panel folks that are part of willing to participate in the panel, because the more variety that we have, the better. And for everyone, I'm going to be leaving these up for 30 minutes after our scheduled 1 hour time, just so people can interact on the clients and not focus on what we're talking about, and focus on, connecting with each other. We encourage you to kind of talk about what areas you have expertise in those chats, the private chats, etc. And please, this is meant to be an interactive show to bring us together. And as we kind of get better at this, so thank you for bearing with the first one, but as we get better at this, we will definitely be expanding it. UCF alumni is already on board and wants to support. So UCF's behind it. I'm hoping you guys get behind it too, and appreciate all your time, and hopefully you provided something of value, and please provide feedback. So after you've watched this, please provide feedback to us. It's only going to help us get better. And the idea is to create an environment where you have something that's of value for you. It's not about me. It's not about anybody that participates on the show. It's collectively for all of us. So if you have needs, if I can provide a service for you, or you just have some questions or are interested in consulting, please let me know. Thank you. I'm going to end this one now because we lost our last viewer just a little while ago. So there's no sense in keeping it open, but thank you so much, and appreciate you guys for coming on.
All right.
Thanks
so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone
Bye,
in
guys.
YouTube world.